Penguin Random House Audio presents The Rivals, a novel by Jane Pek, read for you by Eunice Wong. For my siblings, Pek Li-jun and Pek Win-jie. Part 1. Chapter 1. 20XX New Year Resolutions. 1. Visit Mom every 3 weeks. 2. Finish reading The Analects. Abridged version, okay. 3. Ask Becks out on a date. Scratch that. 4. Start dating. Scratch that too. 3. Go on 3 dates. 4. Stop correcting Coraline's malapropisms. Or at least be less obnoxious about it. 5. Be less judgmental. Chapter 2. Mason Perry strolls into Veracity on a permafrosted January morning to tell us about his case, tripping all my Pavlovian dislike responses as he goes. As he talks, I gradually figure out why. He's too sure of himself because he's handsome and urbane, and also well-off and successful. We know from our pre-check that he played lacrosse at Dartmouth and works in investment banking, that we'll be only too ready to help him because of all of the above, that the world is a place where he can have whatever he wants, because he's never had an experience to the contrary. For an instant, I wonder what it would be like to be Mason Perry, someone like him, if I would also be going around bestowing my winningly asymmetrical grin on all and sundry, projecting a force field of confidence that a ballistic missile would bounce right off of. "How long will that take?" he asks, and eases back into his chair. I refrain from looking at Becks, seated next to me, to see why she hasn't started machine gunning through our list of intake questions as she typically does. Mason Perry interrupted our latest disagreement. Rather, the latest episode in our interminable epic of a disagreement, and I don't want her to interpret that action as a sign of détente. Becks begins tapping a fingernail on the surface of the table, a slow, considering sound, and kicks my shin beneath it. I jolt. Mason Perry, who so far has been floodlighting Becks with his attention, blinks at me. Right. My turn to lead the client intake session. I sit up straight, as if better posture can compensate for the fact that I stopped listening to what Mason was saying 2 sentences in, and ask, "Were your parents really into Earl Stanley Gardner?" Across from us, the robust glow of Mason's face dims into confusion. "He wrote the Perry Mason novels," I say. "That show came from a book?" says Mason Perry. "I had no idea." "I think you have your answer," Becks says to me. Rather, those are the sounds she's making. What she's really saying is, "Jesus Christ, I would fire you if I could." She turns back to face Mason Perry. "What's the woman's name?" "Amalia," says Mason. "Amalia Suarez." Beck says, "Any reason to suspect she might not be telling the truth about anything?" He pauses. There's a staginess to it, to his entire manner, as if he's imagining an invisible film crew trailing behind him, recording his every hand wave and head tilt. "There must be something," says Becks. "Otherwise, you wouldn't have come to us." "That right?" he says. "You don't get people coming to you just to make sure?" "They generally have better things to do with their time and their money." Mason says, his gaze floating past us like his inner director has asked him to turn up the pensive dial. "You meet someone, and she's the girl of your dreams. What's more important than confirming that she's really what she seems to be? That you're not going to end up destroying your life over something that doesn't even exist?" I must admit, he does pensive well. Now I do glance at Becks to see what she's making of all this. Her profile is sharp enough to cut. She's wearing her default expression of disapproval inflected with boredom. It's annoyingly elegant, as is everything else about her. "How do you know?" I ask Mason, because that kind of all-in declaration always intrigues me. "About her being the girl of your dreams." He continues looking into the middle distance for another beat. Then he breaks out the dentist's dream smile and says, "You just know." There are a few different ways to describe Veracity LLC and what we do as Verifiers. When I'm at a party and someone asks me about my job, I work at a small company that conducts independent research for matchmakers. What Veracity's founder and ex-big boss Kamla Etsina said when he hired me, think of us as a personal investments advisory firm. What all our clients think? We're an online dating detective agency sussing out whether the people they meet on matching platforms are lying about themselves. What I learned after I made some questionable decisions around disregarding company policies and the like, although, hey, good thing I did in the end, Veracity was set up to verify not only individual daters, but also the matchmakers themselves. In furtherance of their corporate mandate of profit maximization, the big three matchmakers, which together account for 4/5 of the market, had taken to seeding bot profiles within their own systems, at first to increase their subscriber numbers, and subsequently for even more dubious purposes. Last year, we found out that Soulmate, the Walmart of dating platforms, had developed bots capable of passing as your average socially obtuse human, and the people in charge of Soulmate were raring to start using them to manipulate subscribers' behaviors and preferences. What Becks and I have been tussling about ever since Kamla exited almost 2 months ago, leaving us, along with our resident misanthropic tech savant Squirrel, as co-partners of Veracity, what to do with this information. After all, what sort of self-respecting detective story stalls out with, "And they sat back to watch the bad guys continue on forever after"? Whenever we get on the hamster wheel of that argument, Becks will start racing to inform me yet again, like the characters saddled with bringing the reader up to speed in Chapter 1 of a sequel, why it's too risky for us to do anything except exactly that: watch and wait. She'll lead with how the big three are billion-dollar companies versus our 2.5-person operation mucking around on the 3rd floor of a townhouse in Tribeca. Here she'll sneak in something snide about Squirrel, wasted because he's never around to hear it. She'll expound on how Veracity is already hacking into the matchmakers' systems in order to keep tabs on the synths, as we refer to this new generation of bots, and we don't want to give them additional opportunities to learn about us. Finally, as if I could ever forget, she'll remind me that the person running Soulmate's synth program, the very brilliant and very disturbed Lucinda Clay, went so far as to murder a journalist who was trying to write an exposé. And she knows I'm going to say we don't need to worry about Lucinda anymore, which is blatantly wrong, for as long as Lucinda herself isn't dead, and regardless, there'll be plenty of other people at the matchmakers willing to adopt Lucinda's problem-solving approach, because human beings are a fucked-up species. Earlier today, when Becks used 3 variations of the word risk in the same sentence, the impulse control gateway of my brain, never too securely latched at the calmest of times, clanged open, and I said, "You're not scared, are you?" And thank goodness that right then, both of our phones pinged to indicate someone was outside the building buzzing to be let in, and our screens brightened with Mason Perry's visage. And so, instead of proceeding to eviscerate me like she obviously wanted to do, Becks tapped the entry button on her phone screen and headed into the conference room. Chapter 3. I make myself a second mug of milky tea, settle into my gratifyingly ergonomic.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?